Okay.
All right, we're rolling. Just need to check something here. Just watching live. All right. Sorry for the delay. Here I come. Cat blocker. We are ready to rock and roll here. Hopefully everything's going good. So hopefully you are you're all good there, man.
Yep.
Awesome. It's been a fun weekend. So all right. Sorry for the minute or two delay. Hello. How's everyone doing? Make sure I don't get a lot of noise there. How you doing, Mark?
I'm doing well, Jay. How about yourself?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. I've had some had a long weekend here, and I'm trying to. My son's sound is up. I got to turn that thing all the way down. All right. So, what's new with you, man?
Same old, same old. Getting ready to have my group continue on what they're actually doing.
Yeah, that's tomorrow night. Great.
Tomorrow night, and we'll see how well they do.
Excellent. Hey, I know we're talking about NPCs tonight, but I found in all my searching and all my files, I found, and this gentleman was, and they're not making anything anymore. The Stellarian Games. I found Swain's Keep, the pics he sent, almost the professional images that he sent before he sent the tower to us, and we have this. And this is one of the few things that is better than what Bill does. So it's probably the best piece of terrain we've ever. This is probably the best piece of terrain we ever have. That's custom made for us. It has Swain's fletchings on the on the battlements. It's fantastic. So I figured there's no need for me to have a second camera for this discussion. So I was thinking, let's just run this and put that up and see how many people like that. It's really some nice, excellently terrain. I see Brian's logged in there. So hey, Brian, how are you? Brian was my second guest there.
And one of the most memorable things happened on that tower.
Oh, well, we're going to talk NPC.
About an NPC.
Okay, hold that. But that is a great story. We're going to get to that story. Yes. That's a fantastic story. So, hey, man, it's spinning. Yes, it's just pictures. So here's the deal. NPCs. For the layman, non-player characters, this is how the DM interacts with the player characters in the campaign. Now, do you count like every little person in the world that interacts with NPC? Probably you do. So, for us, I'd say there's three categories of NPCs. There's commoners, everyday passerby people, like a guard, like the guard that Venetha complained to went Thursday night. That's it, right? Right. That was kind of funny, and that's on the spot. Second, I got to figure out something. That's an NPC. Evil antithesis and annoyance characters that are not are non-sheeted. They don't have a stat sheet, but I'm using them for to thwart you guys, or to assuage you work with on a regular basis, or something like that. I mean, those are NPCs as well. And then for us, we have another category all into itself. And what I'm finding is we're completely different from a lot of the other campaigns we are doing. Characters in the party, and I think you're doing the same thing. And that's a style that I don't see that much online at all, where there's actual character or two to interact with the party in the group. So that's what we're going to talk about is NPCs, some more memorable ones. Bill had another engagement, so he couldn't make it on tonight. So we're going to go old school with this, since you are old school. we're going to talk about some of the really, really old classics. Now here's a note. Here's something interesting. So I picked this up on I did some numbers. I got out my trusty. This is my folder for characters, right? So here you go. And then my old where I put shit I don't even remember what I want to do with it anymore. And like characters like Wayne's and Bill Reese's characters are in here, right? So
really?
Oh yeah. Garnett. Yeah. Oh, sorry, Garnett. Yeah, they're in here too. So counting total sheeted characters, I counted 69 that are active. Okay, with character sheets. NPCs 56 that are inactive or retired. And that can count antithesis bad guys or good guys, or and about 35 deceased, and they're all with sheets, and that's counting the other hundreds of different characters who I got to interact with, with you guys on any given basis. So, that's the fun part, man. You got to ad lib. I mean, I was watching Caddyshack the other night. I was like, man, Bill Murray's all ad lib there. You got to ad lib on the spot. So, tell me real quick about the NPCs you're running in your campaign since it's so new.
So I've got a couple of them. I have one that's called Lorelil. She's a Sylvanel specialty priest of Solonor Thalendra. And then I'm also running a Tellus, who is a specialty priest of Taylor. Now, specifically with my group, because they were a little newer to the game. They had tried playing version 3.5 and I think version 4 before.
Cool.
And the person who was actually DMing for them didn't really have an awful lot of experience and so forth. And we got talking one day, one of my coworkers and I, and he was telling me about the fact that they actually have a gaming group that they do. And I said, hey, does anybody play D&D? And he says, oh yeah. He says, we've been wanting to play, and it just got to a point where I said, well, if we can get an interest in here, let's bring it forward. So because I had all, for the most part, brand new players, so I'm running obviously the entire thing for them, but also showing them this is how gameplay actually happens.
Yeah.
So everything from combat to interaction of characters and so forth. And the good news is that they're really great when it comes to doing role play. So they got that right off of the bat. They got really into it. There's a lot of really great character interaction and so forth. But sometimes you have to have, and I was actually going to bring this up when previously, you have to have a little bit of that moral compass and or just a direct, direction. So you have somebody that interacts, an NPC that's there with them all the time, that says, you know what, I wouldn't necessarily do that.
Yeah.
Or I would, maybe it'd be a great idea if you did X.
Yes.
As a for instance.
So absolutely.
Funny story with it. In one of the last ones, I got a newer player that's actually playing a Halfling Guardian. And I like to liken newer players as kind of like little kids on a soccer field. They don't really know what their position really is, just everybody kind of runs to the ball.
Yeah.
And same kind of thing when it comes to D&D is that everybody wants to be involved in that. A battle happens and, I want to get engaged. And so a lot of that moral compass that I have to play is you don't have your magic use straight mage that has an armor class of 10 because they have no dexterity bonus, no protections, really running in headstrong into a fight. That's how you get yourself killed. Well, anyway, this other player that was playing a Guardian kept wanting to shoot the character's short bow. Right. And kept shooting into combat and finally came back and bit him and actually shot one of the NPCs in the back.
Well,
and really pissed that NPC off. So it's
just
one of the little learning experiences that you got to kind of teach your players.
And if there's one thing I hate, it's shooting in melee combat, man. I hate. You know how much I hate that. I hate that with a passion, man. I'm just telling and we have some of we have the typical ones that you can think of that are the abusers, and your head's still a little cut off, so I'm going to go top down. There we go. Oh, look at that! Wow, wow, wow.
There we go.
Okay,
yeah,
so it's yeah, and you can tell from me when I'm like, with an NPC, will come out of the blue and say, you know what, this may be a good idea. And normally it's not leading them astray. Sometimes you have to redirect, and sometimes you really want to just make sure that you know, they're not going to be completely going off the trail too much. You know, and you know, some other DMs may just let them fail, but it's just, you know, we're here to enjoy it. We're not here, you know. And back in the old days, it was like this with the DM versus certain players, and it felt like a competition, and that's what we're going to see. Some of these NPCs are so powerful, the old school ones, because I had to make them that way to really thwart what we had to deal with back then. So in the Monty Hall days, and then in the I don't know what that generation of some of the people you went to high school with days, we should call that the fishy days. I don't know what you want to call it, but
fishy days work for me.
But yeah.
And then we entered into the golden age of the comet.
Yes, the comet. Yeah, the comet. Well, I got the idea from Tim, who put the box with the confetti in it. So here, open this. Poof, Morning Kansas Junction. That was nice. So, but old school. Now we're talking 80s here. That 3-4 range. You know, I just thought there's so many different characters we could talk about, and so many different ways we could go. I have 2 sets of screens up, you can see at the bottom, and I'm scrolling 5 sets of pictures through each. So I may just refer to them. There's the left side. You saw Poo Poo and Kaka on the left, right? To your left, and then there's the right side. So now look, there's Makarash, Phuket, and Sir Twix right there down on there now. So so left side tends to be a little bit of the older characters than the right side characters. You know, I know, and Brian gave me a little trouble. He wanted me to blow up every single figure. You know, I said, well, first of all, most of these figures are not superbly painted like the ones Bill does now. This is like, these are the old figures, you know. And some of them I even painted, so which is crazy. I mean, that's how old they are. But so I just, you know, back in the day, going, and we're talking about, you know, very early in the campaign, I had the evil antithesis Makarash, the elf mauler, and he was a human, and he was a thorn in everyone's side. And it turns out the funny thing is that the Guildmaster of Assassins who left and went to Safeton in Greyhawk, what's his name?
Oh,
my brain just shut off. But
yeah, I know what you mean,
it's like he's the same class setup as him. He's a dual, and before we even know, he's a dual class fighter assassin, like 12th fighter, 15th assassin, and man, I don't know how many adventures, missions, fights we came up against him, but it seemed like dozens. You know, it probably was, you know, and then later on, I tried to. What's that?
I was going to say, so at that time, it was the classic D&D game was the constant struggle between good and evil. And so, you know, even if you look at if you remember the old Dungeons and Dragons cartoon, you know, which was during that same time, you had the antithesis, you had Venger, that was
that's true. That's true.
You know, and so that was a very common type of thing. And then as time has progressed, you know, kind of all bets are off. You have characters that, you know, kind of function on both sides of the equation. That can be the antithesis as well as be, like, you know, your best friend at the same time.
We, you know, it went to a lot more shades of gray. There's Bill. Bill's at a party and he's on now. So if you can hear us, Bill, you can chime in anytime and too. So. And then, hey, Brian, if you're on too, man, and you want to chime in about what's happening with NPCs in your game, man, please feel free to do this. This is an open discussion, especially anyone else who's watching. I look at it as back in the day when we first started playing, we had, you're right, the good versus evil clash, and we had the major antithesis over and over again, you know, and it was rinse and repeat almost, although there were different missions, and they were high level. And I just went through some of the super high level people. Like before Makarash, I had the Claw, and that was before we even started with the campaign. And she actually converted and retired and became Clar, that character. And she's like 100 years old now, you know, and retired. And it went in Texas. It went Claw, Makarash, Phuket, Holly. In those days, that's how it went. It went right down the line, one to another. And then I kind of got away from that mold of a super evil antithesis. I don't know, when Bill and the other group of people started playing, I think is when I got away from that and went more with like organized groups like the Mongrels of the Putrid Tongue and stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
But all I remember, a thing that in those days, the number one thing I remember about an NPC that was not in the player character group was, and Alan won't let you live this down to the day. He still blames you because you could have killed the Phuket on that very first mission, right? I remember it was the Battle of East Vesper at the South Welkwood Bridge, right?
Yep.
Tell the story.
So what I remember of the story specifically was that we had obviously a pretty intense battle all over the place, and you introduced a gnome illusionist assassin, and just for the heck of it, it wasn't. And from what I remember, it wasn't even for anything other than to just be something different to interject into the campaign.
Yes.
And I think at some point somebody asked, what the heck is this guy's name? Because you came up with pretty interesting names, and it was just kind of out of, I don't know, Phuket.
Yeah, that's it. I had no idea. I mean,
yeah.
Normally some of those guys weren't named. It just came up with, that. I don't know why, but it just stuck, right? So
yeah. It was just those things that did. And so as we were playing, the concept that I was just trying to come up with, honestly, was just making it so that we would be able to survive. I mean, you don't have a high-level assassin running around that can go and
there he is in the middle, the gnome in the middle of that picture.
Yep.
Yep. So next to Macrash and Sir Twix with a big sword. Yeah. Good.
Yeah. So essentially, he was sitting on a bridge and he was trying to make his way across, and my character Swain had Ice Storm, and cast the sleeting kind of ice storm to make it slippery. And he slipped off the bridge, and down he went. And, hence, we thought, okay, this is great. Well, I didn't count on the fact that you would have, in kind of a Comic-Con way, constantly bringing him back. So, but it made for hours and hours and hours of entertainment. Drove Wayne absolutely crazy because he kept coming up with different ways of being able to try to take him out, and never did, of course.
Yes.
But to some degree was also, it was kind of like the old days of wrestling. If you watched it in the '80s, when they would have like the big match right at the end, and like when it got really good, it's like, oh, we gotta go. Everything would get cut off, and so you knew sooner or later Phuket was going to show up as like that really, really good match, and no matter what happened, he was always able to get away.
Yeah, well, Illusionist Assassin with high-level illusionist spells, man, with Vacancy and Mislead and improved invisibility and non-detection and all that other stuff, man. It's just like you can't even find the person. But it was. I tried to come up with unique ways of thwarting everyone with that character.
And you did one specifically. This story I got to mention so that it gets on the internet and everybody can come over to my side and give you grief about it. Was my one character Mateo?
Oh, I remember.
And
go ahead.
Those days, we used to take and do. We used to use the spell haste and or potions of speed to do multiples. So just like slow is cumulative, we used to do the same thing with haste because it made sense to literally do so. And then of course it got way out of hand with attacks and whatever.
Oh my gosh!
But at any rate, he was wearing a set of boots of speed, which made him move at 24. He was double hasted, so he moved at 48 and then obviously 96.
Yeah.
And was as fast as a quickling, and basically he failed a saving throw against fear and he ran off, and that was the last that I ever saw that character.
Yeah, because
as the saying goes, Phuket caught up to him in some way, shape, or form, even though he's moving close to the speed of light. Yeah.
Well, once again, the double hasting was something we had to get rid of because it was just imbalancing the game, and it just didn't make it fun anymore. It was just so over the top, and so we got rid of that, and all right, I beat you up a little bit back in the day. I admit it, man.
Yeah,
so I'm an asshole. What can I say? I've calmed down to my old age, for the most part. That's a good one. That's a good story on And then I got bored with him, and about I don't know 10 years later, and had his demise. And then Holly came in, especially Priestess of Leviathan, and oof, is there anything better than a really attractive, dirty-looking female and just mistress of pain? And I know that was another one that drove Wayne crazy too, so that's what made it even better. And she had like a twin sister that was good, if I recall.
Yes.
And they didn't. Sometimes they didn't know if she was playing a trick on them, but she's still around. I stopped using her. Once some of the riffraff was out playing, I kind of didn't have a need for her. But a couple of the annoying type NPCs back then, and two come to mind. One we talked about just recently in the last week. I think we talked about Lisden and Leah McMichael were the two that came to my mind as far as, I have a habit of, oh God, how do I put this? Busting people's balls in real life in the game if they did, So Leah McMichael's the name of a real person, sorry. But, there's another one named Bill Laughlin, and we're still trying to find that if he even is alive today, and that's a high-level mage. But Leah McMichael was, in the Temple of Mental Evil, an archer thief in the group, and for some reason I was annoyed at everyone. So he was chaotic neutral, and so someone bribed him, and he turned on the party and started, attacking them. And he was an archer, and he was a decent archer, and they went crazy on it. So... yeah.
Remember, there were a few people that were pretty bent at that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I can't remember an instance where I've had an NPC in the group turn on the group. That's one of the very few in 38 years of playing that I can recall. But I just needed to do it. I don't know what it was that spurred me on to make that decision, but I did with Leo, and then I used him a lot after that. Mm-hmm. It was a lot of fun times that I had with him afterwards.
And he's technically out there, isn't he?
Yeah, he's still technically out there. There's another one that kind of faded away. It's kind of like a Doctor Who incarnation. It just you move on to the next thing. You know what I mean? Except now we got a woman, but we won't go there on that. So, and then Lisden, we talked about Lisden extensively last week. The bounty hunter that was really. He was the peg knockdowner guy. Always had to deal with some of these guys, and he would just be there with his foot up on the table, and the group would come in at the bar, and he's looking at them, and he's got his red hair and all. He looked in the beard, and he looks at them because you guys think you're tough, huh? And that's all he would say to them. I'll show you tough, yeah. And then he'd knock someone out and leave, out on the path somewhere. He never killed anyone, but he just showed that they were at his mercy. And then you told the story last week about what Tim did, the capture him the one time, put him in jail for a year. Yeah, that was a funny story. Going bigger scale, if you talk about, I got some of them up here, talking about like some NPCs, and we're talking like heads of state. You got the Prince of Ulick, always a thorn in the side of the Knight Order of Ulick. You got his sidekick.
Or he thought he was.
Yeah, he thought he was. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Or thinks he is to this day. His sidekick, Horkar the Magnificent, right? Mm-hmm. You got Lady Walter herself there. She's up right now. And Duke Wilburn looks like some kind of barbarian in the middle picture. With
he looks like Thundar the Barbarian.
Yeah, exactly. And you got a couple others. You got Sir Florum. You got Baron Desley. You got all the elves. They were... there was a lot of interaction in the early days with the Selenians. We got gotten a little bit away from that. I try and get back into that if we start this new group of firsts. But I really loved. I mean, we are a Ulick Selene based campaign. I know we do a lot in Greyhawk City, but Greyhawk's a hop, skip, and a jump from there, and the Wild Coast connects right in there. Yep. And I just, I always loved that. Interaction with the elves. I really hated what they did in the second edition when they made them isolationists. I just didn't understand it. But then, that's their prerogatives. We didn't follow that at all. And we had an issue.
I was going to say that whole area was just such a great area
Yes.
for campaigning. I mean, you had the Pomarge that was off to the east, so there was, you know, any time, and this I think was a benefit for you, was that any time it is that you wanted to run something, you could run something that was either heavy battle based, you could run something that was more intrigue based, you could run something that was more politically based.
Yes.
In the long run, and just because of being in that specific area, all three of those different things were essentially made, you know, as part of the campaign, and in fact, that's where we settled Altamira at.
Right on the border of everything, right in the crossroads of everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Technically, it's in the county Ulick. Technically,
yeah.
Just like Cowerwood's in the county Ulick. Technically, I didn't even realize that. You know, it's on the county Ulick Saline border. And so we have everything meeting up there. But and we're going to get back to that with a new set of firsts, probably at the first of the year, maybe. We're going to start something else up. We'll see. Yeah, the elven relationship. And then to show you how old that relationship is, we have, you know, and we'll do this one day. We'll go through the whole Selenian structure. You know, Lady Ralta Yolan's the head of Selene. She's been there for hundreds of years. And then Duke Wilborn, who's a half elf, we had him as he was the heir in command. You know, second in command. And then From the Ashes came along, and then we had Prince Melf, and I'm like, oh my god, what do I do with him? You know what I mean? I'd never, you know, there were spells in Art Arcana, so sooner. Bill says sooner on the first. Oh my god, dude, I haven't even written up my NPC first, and you haven't painted them. You haven't painted. Marks aren't painted. Mine aren't painted. Walt's aren't painted. Come on, man. So, but you never know. So we just said that he abdicated anything, and it kind of says that From the Ashes that he has no interest in Selenian politics really. So we got, you know, and that was that's kind of how we dealt with that issue on who's next in line. How much did you do in Tim's Highport little sidebar thing I did? You did a little bit, right?
I did a little bit. So yeah. I had Jeanette in
That's right.
In that group.
That's right.
So most of which was Tim, and was just to kind of give some extra an extra break, so he wasn't thinking as much. But
yeah.
But effectively, yeah. I mean, that was one of the few times that I saw that you could do something that was a tiny group, you know, and it was mostly one-on-one. I mean, and which D&D doing a one-on-one type of thing is very draining.
Oh yeah.
In my opinion, because there's not as you only have two opinions that are coming into play versus.
Plus, it's almost day to day. It's day to day activity
absolutely.
Almost, and that's what we were doing a lot of. We were talking about. Him running the freaking bread shop that he created as a what do you call it, as a front, and then so every morning this really attractive female would walk down the street to his place and buy all this bread from him and smile at him, woo, and like he was like all interested in who this was, and it turned out to be Lady Page. Lady Page. I guess when I was a little. I don't know if I had Jimmy Page on the mind from Zeppelin or whatever. But, Lady Valencia Page. And so he got all enthralled with her and found out that she was married to this lord in Highport, Lord Page. Never given a first name for him. But all his guys wore the lightning bolt symbol on all their gear and stuff, and that's how you knew Lord. And this is pre... From the Ashes, the Pomar running up there, doing all that, the slavers being around, really it's before all that. So, and you know how Tim was. Tim with his character Skeeve, with his 20th level, 20 whatever, mage thief, always, you know, and this, I don't know if Alan likes to emulate him, but likes to go off on his own, and so he decides one day, I'm going to dimension door into Lord Page's bedroom. I'm like, okay. So he and I'm thinking to myself, this is perfect. So he teleports into Lord Page's bed. Oh, I'm invisible. So not knowing what. So Lord Page is sitting there. He's getting up. He's getting dressed. Sits up on his bed. He looks over, and all he says to him, he says out loud to himself, "Ooh, another mage," and just pulls out a final word sword and whacks him 3 times with it. And Skeet had like 3 hit points left, and so he went boop, and that was the last time he ever tried doing that again. So Lord Page is still around too, and then Lady Page ended up leaving, and they left Highport, and there was an entire thieves guild he had built up, and then we know what happened. I have a major antithesis in the campaign. Alan wanted to play in on this, so his character Sam and came in, his halfling, and started up a subsidiary guild, and he just left them there when he goes, I've had enough of this, and he left. He left them all there. And one of the guys' name was Lord Drarius the Deposed. And he was a dual-class human. He was a cavalier, and he had lost all his... He was a stupid chaotic neutral. He lost all his money. He lost all his wealth and all his status. So he was a cavalier thief, dual-class. And he could never pickpocket. And when he did, and he didn't feel, he'd break the person's arm.
Yep.
Right? And he was in jail all the time. And it was pissing Mark. It was pissing Alan off. Alan's character Sam. So he just left all his thieves there, and I'm thinking to myself, if I was a thief and I had an ability to get revenge for something like this, we got an achievement. We have Empire Business. That's good. We just got an achievement popped up. It's you stream for 250 hours total. So he spent the rest trying to do everything he could to become the best thief he could. Well, it turns out now in our main city of Altamira, there's a thieves guild that's being run that does not allow any small characters in it because of his hatred for halflings, gnomes, and even dwarves. And it turns out that the guildmaster of this is none other than Drarius the Deposed. And he's a dual-class cavalier thief, and he's in the city that Sam's in and that everyone else is in, and he's here to seek revenge on him. And that chain's been going. That plot line's 20 years old. And like I was like, you can't, how could he do it? I said, if you have enough foresight and thought to do one thing your whole life, like Forrest Gump, right? So this guy's a guild master in Altamira, and he's come for payback. So we'll see what happens there. So that's an NPC for you. But there's also a lot of other things going on in Altamira. We're trying. Yes, when they left me. Yes. All right. Yes, Bill. They left. I still think it's freaking hysterical. Old school, Mark. What do you think? Anyone else you want to talk about?
Yeah. So essentially, when I first remember starting to play, you had introduced the Cavalier was was real new. It was based upon a Dragon magazine article.
Yes. Right
before Unearthed Arcana came out. And this was the group that we had started off. It's where Swain actually came out of, or Gridley came out of.
Yes.
Where one of Tim's, to me, can't stand the character, but I will give him credit for it. Murdoch the Mighty.
It's because Swain and Murdoch are kind of like rivals.
Yeah.
They're both fighter clerks. You're a fighter cleric marriage, but he's a fighter cleric. So
fighter cleric. Yep.
Yeah.
At any rate, the two characters that you introduced in there was the very beginning of the Winchesters. So, Bill, if you're listening, if you want to eliminate the Winchester line, you got to go back in time and you got to get this character. But at any rate, it was Elijah Winchester III.
Yes.
And the other character that also got introduced was Charisse. And Charisse had started off as an assassin.
Yeah.
And then subsequently went over to becoming a bounty hunter. Which was a nice transition too. It was it was a newer class as well, also from Dragon magazine that got introduced.
The irony is, she started out as evil. She was evil, and then it didn't take very well. Yep. She was not of that bent, and ended up being a neutral.
Well, then Elijah converted her.
Yeah. But you got to remember with Elijah. How do I say this without just painting myself? There's that movie star female that every guy tries to hunt for.
We'll just call her, as Bill always says, the violet-eyed lady.
Yes, if you go on to Bill's Blackwind Terrain site, he has an inn he built called the Violet-Eyed Lady. It's in Altamira. It's run by his character Kruk, is a half-ogre based on John Kruk, the baseball player, and that's Britomart Arid Hell. Yeah, thanks, Guy Winchester. That's Britomart Arid Hell, which is one of Walt's characters, and she's like got this 25 comeliness, and she's this gray elf, and she's Walt just said we went offline. I think we're still online, right, Mark?
Yeah, as far as
Yeah.
I can tell.
Yeah. I'm telling him to relog on. He's on his phone. He's coming from work. That's weird. So it's a. Or was I? I'm sorry.
You were talking about Britomart.
Yeah, and so Bernard was eventually in the group, and Elijah did everything he could, man. He tried and tried and tried, and she spurned him. Walt was good at doing that every time, and he just is like, yeah, thanks, Brian. You see my ugly face. Thank you. So, yeah, and he tried, and he got nowhere, and just, found that, well, that was, what's best is right near him. So him and Charisse got together, and he's one of the 3 founders of the Cavalier School, which turned into Altamira. Charisse has been the mayor of Altamira for the last 20 years, and as a grandmother or father, or what you want to call it, the Bounty Hunters Guild there.
Yep.
And she's old, and so Elijah Winchester IV, Kieran Winchester, and everyone's favorite, including Bill's, Jake Winchester, are their children, and they're all characters, adventurers. Yes, I know Bill loves Jake so much. So, and it's a picture of Carrie Elways I have as Jake. He's an archer, and Kieran is she's a monk at super high level. She's in the Iron Brigade, and her brother Elijah the Fourth's in the Iron Brigade as well. So,
but I will say probably the most memorable Winchester of them all had to be Andrea Winchester.
Yes, and let's see, when they spin up, there they are on the right. Yep. Andrea, Elaine, and Ashley, all 3 of them. So Andrea Winchester, and man, Andrea was there to. I love that character. I thought I did a good job with her because she was to complete. Thank you. Yes, Jake is the shallow end of the gene pool, according to. Yeah, Andrea was there. Sorry if Wayne ever watches this, to thwart Wayne and his cat and the Arondises. I mean, that's what I had to do. I had to stop it, and just like she was the most arrogant but confident chick in the world. And was it Tandor? Yeah, Tandor was always
was always the one trying to
tap that. Yeah, always, and she had nothing to do with him.
Nope.
And just she is now high level. I mean, what do we got her at? She's 13th level. 14th. Now, here's the funny thing: Elaine Winchester, who's on the other side, you have A's on one side and E's on the other. It's like a second or third cousin. I think second cousin, and they don't like each other. And Elaine Winchester is dual class. She was Paladin first, and then she dual classed over to Mage. So I think she stopped Paladin 9, Magic User 13, and she married Duke Wilborn and lives now in Celine. And Erin Winchester is another dual class fighter, and she's in a group that we have coming up now, and is one of the adventures we have in the next generation. So as you said, the gene pool's deep. So we'll see what happens with the next generation after that.
Let's not forget Ashley. So, I mean, Ashley out of all of them.
Yes, and we saw a lot of Ashley last week.
My favorite.
Yes, Of course, David and Ashley now are joined, right?
Yes.
Yes.
The end of the world is about to come in because Bradus and a Winchester have joined.
Absolutely. And if you watched Events Before David Gravis' wedding, that all happened last week, and a month previous we had a whole bunch of sittings on it. So yes, she's a 12th level Paladin, and they're all in their older. They should all be in their 50s now, but with potions and stuff like that, they've reduced. But I have a lot. I mean, we started. So we missed one. We got to talk about in that generation. So you got Elijah. We missed the one, and then I brought out Andrea. Then I brought out Elaine. I think in that order. But what's the one we're missing? One who's dead. He's deceased now, and. Yes, Emerson Winchester the third. Yeah, Emerson was my also ran after Elijah, and I kind of like this. I don't want to do this over again. The same thing. So we got to a point, and you'll see. I'll tell you when the pic comes up of him. You'll know he's the most disheveled looking guy with the long beard and all, because he kind of has that look of from Excalibur of what's his name?
Lancelot.
Yes,
Lancelot went into hiding.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So the Amazons.
It's also based on a TV character as well.
Yes. So. Well, that's the whole thing. If you get it, their father above their fathers is named Charles, so you can figure it out yourself now if you're that smart. There he is on the right side. He's that's Leo McMichael Lisden and Emerson Winchester III down there, and so he got tempted by a group called the Amazons of the Crimson Moon. He was married and all, and it just fell apart for him. He lost his paladinhood, and he just, when he went neutral, he just couldn't take it, and he couldn't get back to paladin status afterwards. The Amazons of the Crimson Moon are there in the background. They're a sect of women who all their goal in life is to corrupt all men. I kind of think that's a funny thing, but
and the interesting thing was that they were all of our ex-girlfriends.
Well, yeah, in that group, yeah, that was the kind of the thing that, yeah, it had a lot of ex-girlfriends. You had Yvette for Walt, you had Kim for me, you had Garnett's uncle, ex-wife, Pam.
Yep.
Yeah, you had all that. Yes, I was on. Yes,
yes,
oh,
they
that's
were.
it. Yes. I was on a roll in that, and but they were fantastic as far as that went, and they were led by someone from a first level adventure I ran, and that was the grand leader. So,
yep.
And who was that?
Uh,
First level adventure that on mine besides In the Flesh.
Honestly, I don't
Kulara from Kulara's Land.
Oh, Kular, that's right.
Yep. And so, but they're still around, and Walt has his character Tyra, who's in the group we're running now, the Hiltless Swords. Her father was taken by the Amazons of the Crimson Moon, so supposedly, because their ships have pink sails. That's how you know it's an Amazon of the Crimson Moon. So so Emerson, but Emerson redeemed himself in an adventure we did probably a year and a half ago. Maybe it's been 2 years. You lose track of time so fast. David Gravis was heading south, and a bunch of Rennie ambushed him. They wanted to kidnap and capture him, and Emerson came to the rescue, but he died in the fight, and but he saved David, who was his best friend early on. So. But he redeemed himself in the end. But he's died. But he has seed everywhere. So he hooked up with Corellia. So my character Samantha Crakespone is his daughter. In this group we're running now, he went to Harby and he hooked up with Joanna Tessely is his daughter. There's kids all over the place for him. So
and they keep popping up because we don't know how far he's past the seed.
Exactly.
Contest
So
between him and Garth.
Yeah, him and Alan's character Garth Warmonger, who a half orc, he always claimed to have banged Lady Ralta, one of those kind of arrogant half orcs. But so you get a little fun, and sometimes you run with things, and sometimes things sound stupid. I mean, back in the Monty Hall days, we did a lot of dumb things, but we ran with some fun things. I really enjoyed that whole storyline with the Amazons.
Absolutely,
it was different. It was different. It wasn't orcs. Yeah. It wasn't Eas. It was just like, wow, these chicks are disturbed, So, absolutely. Another couple characters, Sir Twix. He's on the screen right now.
Yep.
He killed Herbie 3 times in 3 successive adventures. He was an evil level cavalier. And the last time they came across him was when we went to see you in Ohio. And that was when they summoned Cernus in the, called the hunt. The actual hunt came.
That was the I must preserve the balance.
Yes.
I must preserve the balance.
With the crazy druid as well. That was a fun time. Yeah. So we enjoyed that one as well. But he was a high-level cavalier. I know Alan would want me to mention him because he killed his one character, Herbie, in 3 straight adventures.
Well, the real reason Alan wanted you to mention him is so that, I could tell the story about how he beat you in the face with a pillow.
All right, let's tell that story. That's a good one. Yes.
No, I don't have to tell the story. I just wanted to make sure that got in there.
Yes.
So.
I put a pin through my foot that weekend, and I almost got suffocated by Alan at night because I killed Herbie again. So. Yep. Yes, the DM got beat up on that one. And then we're talking 87, 88, I think, right? In that time frame?
No. It was like 89 or 90.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Okay, so when we did the trip down to Virginia, that was 87.
That was 80. Yeah, that was 86, 87.
Okay.
Somewhere. Yep.
Man, how time flies.
Absolutely.
All right, old school. Some others. The greatest duelist in all of the Flanace that we have is Gilliam, and he's now in Altamira. But in the old days, he was freelance. And I just remember this one adventure, Garth was messing around with him, and he challenged him to a duel, and this guy in 2 rounds tore him up.
Just tore.
And said, "You're not even a challenge," and didn't even kill him. He just walked away and left him with his dishonor there, you know. And Gilliam is now in Altamira. Has a school there. I know Bill, one of Bill's characters, actually used him for training. Fonkin Hottie Peak. How can we forget Fonkin? Fonkin was right out of the G series of books, but he hung on to us, become an NPC of mine. He was another antagonist to player characters at Chaotic Good, and he always, would get on their cases. He's 14 fighter mage. He's now technically second in command of the knighthood, but if Gazumba ever went away, I don't think. No. And speaking of that,
Fonkin, for all intents and purposes, is that congressman that basically absolutely does nothing whatsoever. Talks a big game, orders people around, flexes his muscle, but if the rubber met the road, I mean, he's actually a pretty tough character, but if the rubber actually met the road, he would have nothing to do with it.
And that's
just
okay.
When Jay felt like being an ass, that's when Fonkin would come in.
Yeah, I felt like being an ass a lot too. I say. Some old ones. I'm not going to take credit for these guys, but I always tried to honor Tim as much as I can, because Tim was the first real DM on a regular basis that I played. I actually played when he DM'd.
Yeah.
So his Wizard of Id adventure, we came across and you'll see on the left, there they are.
Yep.
A goblin fighter, and I made him a bugbear bounty hunter, and they're like best friends. And then there's the Lord Mayor of Glipdol, who's a human with the worst stats. Out of his average stats 9 or 10 across all the stats. So it's Poo Poo, Kaka, and Ichabod. They're the 3 guys that were in that Wizard of Id adventure, and I brought them into my campaign. So Poo Poo and Kaka are both members of the Altamira Bounty Hunters Guild. They're neutrals. Sometimes adventuring groups will come across them out in the wild. Kaka doesn't speak common, the bugbear, but he's highly intelligent, and so they're fun characters to throw in there occasionally. Ichabod is always getting into trouble because the mines have a connection to the Underdark. Yeah, Fonkin's like Ben Franklin. Yeah, a connection to the Underdark there, so he's always fighting dark elves, and just they were just fun NPCs that are still around to this day. That kind of honored Tim, where I first came across him. He just threw them in. I mean, he just made them up from scratch. I was like, oh, that's a great idea. Yeah, and then getting back to two of my main characters, like Hawk and Gazumba, were PCs, and Tim's brought them, kind of like they're in both worlds at the same time. And so they're like best friends. They're both half elves. They came from Selene, but they're both true hardcore members of the Order of Ulick. But Hawk doesn't like the leadership position. He's kind of more of that thief vagabond type. But
he's kind of like Balder, from the Thor movies. He just kind of sits back and has fun and drinks and enjoys life.
Yeah, there they are. There you go on the left. There you go. Hawk, Gazumba, and Fonkin Hottie Peak on that picture on the left-hand side. And if you go to the other side, we haven't gotten even there yet. Newer characters. You see those 3 over there. We haven't gotten to them. We're going to tell that story shortly. That's such a great story. Old school, 1 or 2 others. If you want to really talk... we may not even get to most of the new school. That's great, though. That's fine.
We got to do some of the new school ones, though, too, that are...
Yeah.
That are very...
I'm just looking through my notes here. How can I forget Oxaxius? All right. So Walt has a Archer Ranger, which is crazy, old school, really old character, Pete Moss. He has 2 sons, Mulch and Compost. That's kind of funny, right? But Pete Moss was settled in Altamira in Carwood, and there's a bard, a master bard, 23rd level Oxaxius, a master bard, and all he does all day long is smoke weed and get high, and that's all he cares about. And he's like, hey, man. But he's always around, and he's always just like, you're like, you think to yourself, how did this guy get to 23rd level? I'm thinking to myself, What do you do after you spend your entire life getting through all the fire classes, getting through all the thief, and going all the way up to 23rd level bard, man? And you're like, oh my god, now what do I do with myself? Yeah. Right? And that's what I think.
There's nothing left to accomplish.
Yeah. So what else are you gonna do? So him and
there's your comic relief.
Yeah, basically.
Yep.
But although he did get kidnapped multiple times, he got put in a mirror of life trapping. Once you had to go free him out of that. I mean, he always gets himself in trouble.
Absolutely.
But he's more of a comical relief character, right? Out of Altamir and Carwood in that area. So but that's old school characters. Yep. And then Bill Laughlin. Bill Laughlin's this is a real person that I went to grade school with. I'm not bragging here. He was the only person who had a higher IQ than I did in the tests. He had like a 166, 167 IQ tested. This dude was whacked. We do searches all over, but we don't know whatever happened to him.
Bill, if you're out there.
Yeah, it was freshman year in high school, he disappeared. But so this guy's just a straight mage. He has his tower north of Carwood in Selene. And because he was the only mage that was of high enough level, everyone went to him for what?
A wish.
Yes, can I go get a wish from Bill Laughlin? And he's like, make an appointment for 2 years later. I was like, oh my god. So he just was like, he was a Monty Hall old school character, and he's still there to this day. But no one knows better than to even try and get some.
Nobody knows where he's at.
Yeah.
In real life and in D&D.
Yeah. So rounding up that, I think that rounds up some of the old school guys.
No.
Go for it.
There's one, and probably the ultimate NPC that got introduced way back in the time of Skeeve with Lord and Lady Page.
Hib?
Nope, not Hib. He sold a piece of fruit.
Oh my god! Yes. The ultimate side bar. Yes.
Yep.
Hoops.
Hoops.
All right. So Hoops was this guy in the summers. Alan, myself, Tom Lanuti, who plays with us on a rare occasion, and my other friend Steve, who is the one who opened that door last week. It was looking for monkey hooks. We all worked at RCA in the summers, and there was a guy there, and he walked to the gate, and he had this. He scuffled along, and he had this huge growth on his neck, and he had this Charger that was all beat up, and he said, this is in the 80s. So this Charger's going to be worth a lot of money one day. I guess he was right. But so I just said, I'm going to make a character up on him. So Hoops has his own fruit stand, and he sells mangoes and kumquats, and he's in out. See the Swain's Keep that's up? He's literally 50 yards away from that keep in Altamira. He has his fruit stand there. So, speaking of that, tell the story now of the greatest thing that happened on that tower. Let's hear the story.
Okay, so I remember I was coming back from Ohio to New Jersey for an adventure. I believe was the case, and my character Swain has been in and out of the campaign multiple times. He has some children as well. For those that had watched one of our previous sessions that we had. Talked about how I completely screwed up the entire Dragonlance campaign because the whole storyline, because I brought Lorana back as the fit-in for Tanis and stuff.
Real quick, we went through DL1 through DL4 with certain characters because they new modules, right? And I'm like, what the fuck's a gully dwarf? I'm sorry. And then it just got worse and worse and worse. I'm like, they kept throwing snowballs. I'm like, that's enough. I've had enough of this.
This band and the snowball throwing.
Oh, my God. That was it.
At any rate, I had actually read the books, and I fell in love with the actual world itself. And so I was disappointed that we had given it up. But Jay allowed me to incorporate some characters into it, one of which was Lorana, and Lorana and Swain actually had a few children, and one of which, the top one, the oldest one, was named after the character from Dragonlance, Gilthanas. So at one point, as we're gathered around Swain's Keep to visit his other child, his sister, Gilthanas' sister Alicia, all of a sudden we hear some screaming going on. We hear something to the effect of "Take that, chicken lips!"
Yes, on the top of the tower.
Sure enough, off of the top of the tower, Gilthanas comes crashing down to the ground. we soon find out that it was a resurrection of Swain, something that you had incorporated in.
Well, here's the thing. Bill's character, here he is. There they are on the right. There's Gilthanas, Alicia, and then there's Catherine von Papen, my character, and that they're all in the group called the Night Stalkers in Altamira. But so Bill's character Salen got a crown, and this is when Bill first started playing. He found it in some muck in a cave, and it turned out this crown was the crown of Rogero Bloodmoon, and this crown had superpowers on it. Well, eventually they hid the crown in Greyhawk to keep it away from him. Walt's character in the Night Watchman, but he got it back. He didn't want it, but he had no choice. Basically, it was his destiny. He took the crown and became God incarnate or whatever, and started. Well, first of all, he was a necromancer. Every time Alan's character Milana died or had a limb cut off, he took a piece of her, and he was taking pieces of people. And I knew about it, but not the rest of the
right.
party knew about it. He was taking the pieces. So he took all when he got this crown, and he went off and he started. First off, he went back to his home. He wanted to get Swain back, so he had some hair fall of something. He got Swain cloned. And Swain went after his own son because it was an evil Swain and knocked him off the top of the tower. And so everyone thought that was hysterical. Because Gilthanas is the most universally hated. We voted. Gilthanas is the most hated NPC in the entire campaign. That's saying something. I don't know how much more you could say, but he's really hated as a character. And it's my fault too. Mark when moved to Ohio, he said, "Can you keep playing them?" So I took Alicia and Gilthanas as NPCs, and I went so far with Gilthanas. He's a duelist, duelist out of Dragon Magazine, and he's got he always says, come kiss the guns. That's what Plus he had a habit of he's not very
he's not very nice to women.
Yeah, he's not. He's not. He's a neutral character. Now Alicia's very charming. She's a neutral good character. Very, very, very Clark Mage, just like her father. So, but yeah, that's the story behind the tower. Him getting knocked off the tower. That adventure was fantastic. That was so long ago now. That was 5-6 years ago when I was in my other house in Stratford, not here. One of the last ones we did. I got pics of that. I don't have enough pics. I only got like 2 or 3, and they're all fuzzy. It's a shame. But I'd love to get that one up. So, to Salen, I had to play Salen for that. So you consider him maybe for that time only an NPC. He took all those Milana pieces and cloned all those. So there was
others too, because Railstone was in that group, Swain was in that group, and a couple of other characters.
Yeah, every single piece of every character he took along. They were all there as bad guys. It was great. So you're fighting people you knew. 3 Milanas, I think. 1 Railstone and 1 Swain. They were all there. It was awesome, man. It was a great thing. And a whole bunch of really nasty beholders. But and
came down with the greatest title for an adventure. Salen made me do it.
Absolutely.
And it stuck since then. Anytime anything happens, somebody always says, Salen made me do it.
Yes. But that goes back to an earlier adventure where this low intelligence person was set up, and they had to go into these tombs, and someone got killed, and the Night Watchman interviewed this guy, and he's like, Salen made me do it, right? And that's where that came from, and that was the spoof on that. You weren't around with that. Yeah. So, it was like a 4th level, 7th level, 9th level Milana. It was great. It was awesome because you had taken Salen had taken pieces of him of characters for years. I was like, I can't wait to just take this and turn it. So, yep. Look at that, man. Well, it's 8.
Yeah,
we're gonna go a little long here, man. Why not? We're having so much fun. So I know there's someone you want to bring up, and you're a fan of them, but no one else is, and that's the Craxus family.
Yep.
Right. So you talk about my NPCs there.
Yeah, so I mean, we have Harrison Craxus, and then I'm trying to remember the other one. The other one was the Jester, isn't it?
Yeah, Richard Craxus.
Drippy. Yeah, Richard Craxus.
And now Theodore Craxus, Theo's Heroes.
Right. And they were really good friends with the Winchester family, if I remember correctly, is how they got their in. So he was
They're
I'm
Selenian.
sorry?
They're Selenian.
Oh, they're Selenian.
They're Lesser House of Selene. They're half elves.
Okay.
Harrison was a bounty hunter. He was the only one that wasn't a jester. Yeah.
No, they were other interesting types of characters that have come into play. Theo, I forgot, was also Craxus as well. And, Jay does a really, really great job of bringing in a lot of different kind of comic relief into the mix. It's one of the reasons I think that Gilthanus is really hated as much as he is. It's also part of the reason why a lot of times a lot of the fun in the game is the interaction with the actual NPCs that go on. I am thoroughly convinced that if Bill would have actually met Andrea as well as Fonkin in their peak, he never probably would have ended up joining our group and playing.
It's possible.
I'm actually surprised that Wayne and Bill and those guys lasted as long as they did.
Well, it was different back then because you had our core group of Walt and Tim and Mr. Sheets and you, and then we had this other group.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, yes, Theo is a hero, Bill, absolutely. See, all right, so I don't know besides you and me, and I've looked. I don't know of any other DM. Most of the talking head type DM. Like I said, I'm not bashing anything. They don't play characters in the party, and I think it's a mistake. I think maybe even if one character in the party is just it's just it makes my life a lot easier, believe it or not, because you can direct the story a little bit, and you can help. You can also antagonize. There's a lot more things you can do than just to really get the interaction going on it. And I'll get an example would be what happened Thursday night. Except I used your character as the antagonist. Yeah. So Vinitha said something to the innkeeper, which I was even shocked that she would say that. So Michael Baton is probably the most hated player character in the campaign, and that's Mark's. So he's in another group called the Furies, but he ventures with the group with the Harvey Irregulars sometimes. He came into the inn, and I started getting it on with Vinitha a little bit, and then as he was leaving, he spilled a drink on her, and she got all. But see, sometimes sometimes I'll even throw in a PC to interact in an NPC sort of way. So. Yeah. Yes, see, look at that. It's going to be the pet. It's been alternating all these years, So, it's I just love that. In tabletop, maybe it's easier than doing it just in theater of the mind. I guess theater of the mind type stuff, it's a lot more difficult to do. So I don't know if Brian's still on. I know Brian, I don't think does it, but he's doing a lot of using the what's it called? Fantasy Grounds. He uses a lot of Fantasy Grounds software. I watched. He does a real good job with all that with his group. It's really very well done. But I don't think he uses an NPC in the group as well. I mean, let's say our play style is really different when it comes to the tabletop alone is completely different. And doing first and second edition, I can't find a single online on Twitch anyone else doing anything but 5e. I haven't seen a single one. And we're the only ones that are doing old school first and second, and then using the NPCs in the party would be the third thing.
Well, so, and I mean, ultimately, to each their own. I mean, whatever works for them. If the players, and this is one of the things I tried instilling in my group, is that you are going to come up against things that you're just not going to be able to beat, or you're going to suffer in some way, shape, or form. It's part of the game, in all honesty. Yes. But you can't be, and I've played in campaigns where the DM, all that the DM would do is just piss off the players just to get his rocks off. And so he would interject stuff into the mix, and not you, of course. I'm talking about somebody else. But he would interject things in that would just cause all sorts of battling between the actual players.
Right.
And it got to the point where it just wasn't even fun anymore, and so I stopped playing. And, at the end of the day, everybody is using this as kind of their release. So,
oh, my gosh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you get people that go out there and they like to bowl, or they like to play golf, or they like to, play cards or poker, whatever. Yeah. And, I mean, for us, this was just our way of having that kind of a release and just getting the world away from us for the day, even just for a few hours.
Well, another thing that was different with us and a lot of other broadcasting is this is our fun. This is truly our fun time. We're doing this for the fun of it, and I just want to throw it out there to everyone before we finish up. We're going to be eligible. We're definitely going to be affiliate status in 3 days. We'll have that, and then I got to do tax paperwork and all that BS. But we're not looking for money. We're going to be looking to do donations. So we do this for the fun of it. But we really want to get our style and the old school back in there. That's we're on all the Facebook pages, really promoting, the old school OSR, OSREC they call it, or first second edition. We want to get back into that style. I love it. Where we've come from this, but some NPCs we missed. One that I did not create, but I changed was Bladestorm. I love Bladestorm.
Mm-hmm.
She's a great character. Out of the Narwhal Headhunters. Brolin, who you see slowing on the right next to Bladestorm, I'll point out when it comes up. He's an NPC of mine, and that his best friend is Bill's character Trevin, and Trevin works with the Narwhal Headhunters as well. They're members of the Iron Brigade, but they travel to Narwhal a lot, and that's a cool relationship there.
About the Crystal Gratis.
Yeah, well, that's really new, and we don't even get to. There, Jacob's. Neb, there you go. Neb is going to release on Ilya. So, you guys are playing tomorrow night too, man,
yes.
right? Okay,
yes,
cool.
We are.
That's awesome. Yeah, Crystal Gratis. I mean, if we're talking new characters, she's a little off. But she's a Knight of the Holy Shielding, and she's a little. She's one you don't want to mess with or say anything bad about the Gravis family or anyone from the Shield lands. Some others that I know, Bill mentioned to me, Junior was from the end of the Mongrels of the Putrid Tongue. Junior was the prototypical wonder child of the Mongrels. It was a halfling crossed with an orc. So he was half halfling, half orc. And that turned out to be their best thing they ever created. So besides the secret that they were able to crossbreed an elf with an orc, and that secret's maybe coming back in futures. So yes, thanks, Walt. Hey, typical female NPC, Walt says, but look at Walt's PC. So which are more crazy, I ask you?
Sir Harn. You didn't even talk about Sir Harn.
I didn't get. Yeah, we missed Sir Harn. Sir Harn was he won the first joust tournament we ever did in the Tringley Midsummer Festival, and that's where Lord Peakshaven that we talk about. This is the bar where we're chatting in is. He hooked up Elena. Elena basically boy-toyed him, and Elena had 2 children from him. He was and he's like the highest level cavalier there is in the county of Ulick. So yep, tobacco bag, absolutely. So going back to Junior. Junior was killed. John Sheets, who's Tim's dad, he has a character. He has the highest fighter druid thief we have in the campaign, and he, as a trophy, took Junior's ball sack as made it into a tobacco bag. So someone found out about that, and then they tried actually resurrected Junior from a tobacco bag. So. But Junior's gone now. But I did a Mongol revival adventure where someone's found some of the books, and yes, tobacco bags. Yeah, absolutely. and so the book is out there that the elf orc wrote, and they're finding pages of it, and that's what the Adventure Mongol Revival was about, and you can look that as a rerun on it's up there if you can watch the vid on that. But I'm gonna do more Mongol adventures, absolutely. Yeah, that's one of the more fun. I had no idea he was going to do that, and we were all looked at him like, "That's funny." I said, "Oh, good, I can resurrect them now." So, there's a couple others. Harn was a good one. I appreciate that, Mark. Did I mention Buddy? Buddy was my elf.
No, you haven't mentioned Buddy.
Buddy was a halfling when we did Shorty adventures with who led the group? Out of a Dragon.
Oh, was that Spooter?
You've been had.
You've been had. That's right.
You've been had.
Yeah, you've been had Mork the Orc.
Now, You've been had is actually Spunk.
Yep.
Short People's Union for Nefarious Kleptomaniacs.
Yep.
Spunk is now active in Altamira. Their guild is there. So Spunk is now back. and Spunk is there to go after Lord Darius the Opposed Thieves Guild. So there's a lot of that going on, and that intrigue, and
just wait till we actually have a Thieves Guild war that's going to go on in Altamira.
Yes, and it doesn't matter how many high-level people you have there. It's just like Greyhawk. There's always stuff going on in that background too. We take stuff from that's considered canon, and some canon NPCs. I mean, everyone's having let's keep this rolling just a little bit longer.
Sure.
Some canon if you're good, because some canon NPCs. If you go through the slavers, Bill wanted me to mention this, the Marquesas. Marquesa was an original slave lord from the A series, right? And she's supposedly escaped. Now, if you want to look at a non-dark elf, she's the most sinister, evil high elf I think she is I've ever seen and written. If you read about her in the slaver book, she's
just devious,
despicable,
and nasty. Yeah.
Right? So she had created 4 copies of herself in the slavers. There's Marquesa the Red, Marquesa the Black, Marquesa the Green, and Marquesa the Gold. You've killed Marquesa the Red and Marquesa the Black. Marquesa the Green, you didn't turn, supposedly unturned. So she's wandering around, and the group, the Harbier regulars, have come across her. And Marquesa the Gold is still active in Highport. So, and then there's the original Marquesa, and she's I wouldn't mess with her. Some others that we saw Randall White last week. Poor Randall, what's going to happen to him?
Yeah, so you got to give a little bit of background on Randall. Unfortunately, I had taken some time off from the campaign.
Okay.
Living in Ohio, so I don't have as much memorable things with Randall White other than the fact that he's a tool.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, and it's really in the mold of Homer a little bit. So, not that I'm saying he was a tool, but he was misguided. All right. So the Knights of the Holy Shielding are trying to reclaim the Shieldlands for all these years. And there's some guys that have some good intentions at heart, but they have it. It's going to be their way or the highway. He's going to hate me for this, but Randall White reminds me, and Bill's going to agree with me on this, of Steve if he was Randall White. Okay.
Yeah, probably.
Yes, it's his way or the highway. So Randall White is was a cavalier. His sidekick Chet Bluegrass is a Saxon, and they always do the wrong thing for the most part. And our group, our adventurers, have bailed them out 4 or 5 times over the years. And if you watch the events before David Gravis' wedding, Eric and Whistler always follow them in the distance because they know something bad's going to happen. And we didn't talk about them either. So, yes, Walt agrees with me on that. It was so they just were members of the Order of the Holy Shielding that I created. They're not canon anywhere. That just. When you have organizations, you don't have all just good guys that do all the right things all the time. You know what I mean? So with your characters coming up in the Legion group and the what we call the Keep group, the Shield, the people who are in the Shieldlands, those characters, you got to deal with these people sometime, and it's like a bureaucracy. It's like politics. There's always someone who's just you're like, what the hell are they thinking? Why are you thinking that? And that's kind of like what Randall White is. He's like the wrong thought process of what the Shieldlands should be doing now, and that proved you guys lost the Shieldlanders lost another third of their army, their massive army in the adventure we did, But there you
go. he also has a lot of charisma,
right,
as well, and got a lot of people to actually follow him.
Absolutely,
in way, shape, or form. So I mean, there is a little bit of method behind the madness when it comes to that too.
Yeah, and I like that. He's lawful neutral, so I like those shades of gray characters, man, because it's just not like, oh, here are all the good guys, and let's go after the bad guys. Now, how are we going to do it? And we saw that in them. I mean, and he was blatantly arrogant because he doesn't like David Gravis. He doesn't like David Gravis at all. He doesn't like Katarina because she's young and brash like him. He doesn't like Valoress Asharan because she should be dead. No, so he doesn't like the leaders of the Shieldland, and he surmised this plan to become one of the oligarchs because your terms were up, and his plan was, I'm going to go up there and I'm going to knock his army out, and everyone's going to love me. So yeah, and you saw what happened. So I mean, that's just my style of DMing. I kind of like the tool bag aspect of it. It's coming. You see it, and it's a train wreck you can't look away from. You know,
Yep.
it's not going to go well for those characters. So yeah, he was one. Another one that everyone hates is particularly Alan and Bill too is Alita Norbalos. I love sticking her into things. Yeah, I love Alita, and Alita's gonna have a little tie into Thursday night, so you'll see shortly. But she's got the wrong intentions for the wrong reasons, and just is not a very charming individual when it comes to. She does what she wants to get what she wants immediately. She's instant gratification. So, Tensor is an ally of a lot of your people now. Yes, there's not one nice thing you can say about Alita, though I agree with you on that. But you probably will say a lot less nice things about her after Thursday. That's all I'll say. Yes, Juan Carlos is another one. Juan Carlos is the head of the captain of the guard in Altamira. He has a daughter, Cassandra Carlos, an NPC of mine. She's a multi-class human because she's a maester. She's a fighter maester. He's always around. He always goes into the tournaments and doesn't do well, but he's the captain of the guard. Yeah, Walt has brought up another cool one, Knuckle Paler. Shannon Maynham is her name. Maynham's one of the big families in Harby. She just couldn't take to a life of being normal. She wanted to be a pirate her whole life. Maybe she was watching pirate shows somewhere on I don't know. But she was and those adventures are still online. Adventure number 821, A Tale from Knuckle Paler, and 822, A Deal with Knuckle Paler. And there's two different adventuring groups. So if you're interested in what she did previously, a year before that, she her mother, Shen Maynham, asked for the group Reckless Indifference to rescue her. And they found out that she was the leader of the pirate group that, like, what? So, yeah, she's another one that is, had a very evil slant to her. More chaotic, stupid, neutral than evil, but really, wants her things the way she wants it. And at the end, during that adventure, she gets away. And she gets back with her love. Donnie the Dandy is back, and they go and they say we're heading south. We're leaving Woolly Bay because we know we're wanted, and they're heading south toward Ulick. So you guys may run into her with New Group of Firsts.
Yeah.
So absolutely.
She loves to put the screws to us.
Yeah. That'll be a good one for Sea-Base too. So, but
absolutely.
So I try and always, and Mark will tell you, I try and tie stuff in 10, 15, 20 years. The sailing with the Crown. With the Crown of Ruggiero Blood Moon, that chain went, Bill, 15 to 20 years long before I actually hit the switch on that. And a lot of people died in that adventure, but it was fun. It was fun. Let me see what else I got on my list here. But Tensor and Jalarzi Salivarian. Jalarzi has a student named Mariel, and she's canon, and our character, John Sheets' character, Abdul Amir, is kind of like dating her, so that we got a tie-in there. And, but John's been under the weather for a while, so he hasn't played in a while, but, that's another a canon tie-in with NPCs I play. Like I said, and for any of you who joined late, we got 69. I think 69 active with Sheets, 56 inactive with Sheets, about 35 deceased with Sheets, and hundreds of other NPCs. So I appreciate the time here. I think this is the largest viewership we've ever had on a Gabbin, and I really appreciate it, everyone. Like I said, our affiliate status should happen within 2 to 3 days, and then we'll go from there on. What we're going to do as far as donations, if anyone wants to give the children. I think we're going to do St. Jude's or Children's Hospital Philadelphia, one of the two. What do you think, Mark? Can you think of any others, or anyone online think of any others? I know we ran a little long on this, but
there's just so many that
we'll do a part 2 on the new groups down the road at some point. Yeah, Next week we're gonna do adventuring groups, because you had some questions on who are the helpless swords, what I mean. So who's the Windborn? So go ahead, Mark. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No. That's okay. There's just, I mean, if we went through every single NPC, I mean, we'd be here for hours.
Yeah.
To be quite frank, I mean, there's all sorts of different. There's ones we didn't even mention, like the Corellan's arrows, as an example.
Yeah, well, that'll be next week. We'll mention them in the group for next week. Absolutely,
yeah.
Absolutely, and the Fellowship of the Torch,
Yep.
the Fighters of the Light.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, there's all sorts of different. When you talk about, it's not just a particular person, but sometimes it's a group.
Yeah.
Of people.
Absolutely.
And we talk about mercenary guilds and where they actually fit. As we talk about groups next week, that'd probably be a good example to show like where all the mercenary groups fit in the different areas, either Altamira or
I'll have this over here, the screen up again, and I'll have the rankings in all the cities that we do, which is Altamira, Hardby, and Greyhawk. All the ranking of the mercenary groups, and it'll be up to date. It'll be up to date, showing. Torch of Grooms is another one, but I didn't make that too. That's in the Is the Evil set, or is it Markland? It's one of the two. And I really developed that in the Dreadwood, in Vespi, for Bill's character, Alinor and Jonar, where they actually met the leader of it, and they wanted Jonar to poke his eye out and stuff, and Walt had Gramercy Riff, his fighter necromancer human dual class, up there too. They were calling him Slave Boy. That was fun too. That was a good one. So we'll mention them next week as well. But like I said, I'm always having a lot of fun with this. I'm going to do an update Wednesday night. I was thinking about not doing it, so I may keep the Skype on, so anyone wants to jump in, so we can fill everyone in on where we are from the adventure that happened last week. We'll just skim through it. It'll be 20 minutes, I think. Yeah. And then we'll broadcast on Thursday, and we'll finish that up. Then we'll have a one-nighter the next week, and then I'm on vacation after that. So I appreciate it. One last time, anyone else bring up any other individual characters? I'm looking through here. It was good. We hit almost everyone on my list here that I can think of. I
mean, I'd just like to add, just as being a good steward of the game overall, so much the game has given me and giving back. If there are new people that are out there that, you're trying to get ideas for characters and character interaction, I wouldn't necessarily say that we have it down to a science, but, when you've been playing for 38 years, you think that you've exhausted just about any kind of character type that you can come up with. And frankly, I mean, we still, everybody comes up with something new character flaws or new, personalities and so forth, NPCs that you have to keep coming up with. It's not like a rinse and repeat kind of thought, in many cases. So, you take, many times you lean on people it is that sometimes it makes, especially if you have groups of people that know each other, that happens all the time. And it's kind of funny, there's even monsters that come back that remind us of people that, or other NPCs that,
oh my God, yeah,
that come into play. Wayne Drew Derek Reese or whatever it was.
Or Boggle. I mean,
Boggle, yes.
Thank you, Velvet Soldier. We really appreciate that. Thank you very much. So yeah, you'll have that, and combine that with the 40 different classes we have, and all the different races you have in first and second edition, and you can come up with a lot here. So here it is. There's all our classes. We've gone over them in previous Gabbins. Combine that with different ideas for a character you want to come up with. Usually I'll pick a location where we're going to start our first. I'll say Greyhawk, Hardby, Altamira. This time we're going to do the next group of first we start up. We're going to do Pomarge, Sus Forest, Ulick area. So where all the Nutty keeps are, and that was Bill's idea, and
that's because Bill's the pet.
Yeah. Yeah, and Walt brought it up too. We've gotten away from like in the early days, the Monty Hall days, it was all about power gaming. I mean, if we put through Pete Moss, Walt's character Pete Moss in here, he could literally kill a character in a round and a half with the damage he does from. And we just that we've gone away from that, and it's been much more fun. And it's instead of going out and drinking on a Thursday night, we're going out and sometimes drinking but playing. And that's why we love the game so much, and that's why we've all stayed together since I was freaking 13 years old. It's been a blast, and it's going to keep on going. But just wanted to come up with and show you the depth of the level of NPC development we have. And I would recommend you, if you're a DM, try it once. Just say I'm going to play a character, and you can just throw them in there, and they go, "Who's this?" And you run that character. Run that character in. Don't make him powerful. Make him a utility character. I have like the Cleric Mage Thief, Fighter Mage, because a lot of people don't want to play thieves anymore. Because they think that you need someone to open locks, right? Or anything, just a single straight spellcaster, or a cleric, a specialty priest that can heal, that isn't combat based, like a special piece of Ouija or something, and run that character, and then you could use that character to really talk up and work through your group, and it helps with direction, and it helps with, you can spur an interaction between your player characters with that character. Yep. And sometimes I got to do that when everyone's in a coma. So, which can happen when you work so much as much as we do.
Well, and let me add to that too. So, for those that are out there that are watching that are 5th edition players, you obviously have access to the 1st editions. They reprinted a lot of the books that are out there, and there's all sorts of bookstores all over the country. People that had played the game at one point or another and had bought the books and turned them back in. There's tons of material online. I was watching actually a YouTube video, and it was talking about how they were doing a comparison between 1st and 5th, and they couldn't understand 1st, like things of, like, you don't get bonuses unless you have 16, 17, or 18 for your stats. And it's like, yeah, because there was balance to the game, things of that nature. And that's what you find is that when you have a lot of different types of character classes and races that you can do in combinations, you don't get so hung up on all the base things, like, half-orc barbarians running around, or dwarven paladins running around, those types of things. There's reasons why the 1st edition rules only allowed for those things. Mostly, and this is what I teach my players, is balance. Is you introduce a balance into the campaign, so you don't have everybody running around doing the same thing. It's not just about the talking that goes back and forth. There's interactions. I mean, think of Gillian as an example. Taking on Garth. I mean, when he says that he was the greatest duelist in the entire world, if he ever met Gilthanas, I can definitely say Gilthanas would be. Well,
they're both in Altamira now, so Gilthanas.
Yeah, you never know.
Gilthanas has to figure out how to get rid of him, or he's never going to open a duelist school of his own, right?
Yeah, so exactly. But that's what I mean. Is that take the time. There was a lot of thought that Mr. Gygax and others had put behind why the rules were the way that they were, and I mean, obviously, run whatever it is. I mean, I think that the greatest thing is that the game is still being played, regardless of the edition or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
But you'll understand probably a lot more where we're actually coming from. When you have a campaign running 38 years, it works for a particular reason. So.
Well, I appreciate that. Have fun with it. That's the main thing. Just enjoy. DMing's not easy, and it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of preparation, but it's very rewarding. If you can get your players to come back for a year, even, you're doing something right. And I would say to everyone out there, just you find out what your character's like, and you find out a play style that fits you. And you got to be amenable. You can't be inflexible with your players. You got to listen to them. That doesn't mean you let them run the insane asylum. You can't do that. You got to have some structure. And you can see where I got to shoot down some people, and we get into fights still. I mean, and that's after all these years. There's always something that I got to argue with one of my players on, but that's fine. But so, and then I'm right, you're wrong, and that's But it still happens to this day after all these years. And I was talking about that in one of my posts. We're after 38 years, we can't remember how many rounds a prayer spell lasts still. Or how many rounds a protection from evil, a 1st level spell is. I don't even know. Is it 5 rounds per level? 3? I don't even know what it is.
Something like that.
To this day, I don't. I gotta look it up every freaking time and get fights and over that kind of stuff. But just use it, and that's what I said. The NPC in the party. As long as your party's not unmanageable, it's a good, don't make it too big. I run 2, so because I like to have different personalities in it. But it's a great way to really meld in and work with your group. So, thanks everyone. I know, we went real long. We were an hour and a half, but this was our best one by far as we've had on our 9th Gabbin. Mark was my first guest, and now you know. But Mark and Bill tend to pop on a lot, and I'm trying to get more input. Gonna have some more types of people come in and do some more interviews and stuff. But I really appreciate it. Like I said, the greatest bar in all of Tring-Lee, Lord Peak's Haven, Lord Peak Special. If you can drink 3, you go up on the wall of fame, and you get into the felt picture of you know, the dogs playing pool. You get up on that, and so far the success rate is low on that. But thank you very much. This has been another episode of Gabbin at Lord Peak's Haven. My name's Jay. I've been with Mark for the last hour and a half. Yep. I am Lord Gazumba. Mark's best character that we know for the most part is David Gradavis. So thanks a lot, guys. I'll talk to you all soon. See you Thursday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Time.
All right, bud.
All right, man. Talk to you.